The grand chamber of the Galactic Conclave had never been so quiet. Representatives from 47 star systems sat in their floating platforms, arranged in a massive circle around the central speaking area. The walls were made of living crystal that glowed with soft blue light, and the ceiling showed the stars outside. A reminder that this station floated in the void between worlds. High Arbiter Zelthos rose from his seat. He was a Valorian, tall and thin, with pale blue skin and 4 eyes that could see in spectrums humans could only imagine. His ceremonial robes flowed around him like liquid silver as he raised one long-fingered hand for attention. "The vote is complete," he announced. His voice was cold, formal, carrying the weight of centuries of tradition. By a count of 39 to 8, the motion carries. Earth and all human territories are hereby exiled from Conclave space. Humanity has 90 standard cycles to withdraw beyond the Outer Rim. Ambassador Catherine Moore stood alone on the human delegation's platform. She was a woman of 53 years with silver-streaked brown hair pulled back tightly from her face. Her dark eyes showed nothing as she listened to the words that ended 60 years of human involvement in galactic politics. Around her, the alien delegates whispered to each other. The insectoid Krath clicked their mandibles in what might have been satisfaction. The massive stone-skinned Goroth rumbled low conversations in their thunderous language. Only the amphibious Delori, with their large sad eyes and blue-green skin, seemed troubled by what had happened. Catherine had expected this. She had seen the votes being counted over the past weeks, watched the political alliances form against her species. The Valorians had been working toward this moment for years, spreading rumors about human aggression, human ambition, human danger. "The Conclave recognizes Ambassador Moore for a final statement," Zelthos said. There was something in his voice that sounded almost like mockery. Catherine activated her platform speaker system. Every eye in the chamber turned toward her, waiting to see how the humans would react to their humiliation. Would she beg? Would she threaten? Would she cry? "I have no statement," Catherine said simply. Earth accepts the Conclave's decision. The chamber erupted in surprised murmurs. This was not how young species behaved when they were cast out. They were supposed to fight, to argue, to make a scene that would justify the punishment being given to them. Catherine began gathering her documents, organizing them neatly into her carrying case. Her movements were calm and precise, as if she were ending any ordinary meeting. Ambassador Moore called Delegate Thesha from the Krath platform. The insectoid's mandibles worked carefully to form human words. "You truly have nothing more to say? No appeal to make?" Catherine looked up at the Krath delegate. Thesha had been one of the votes against humanity, convinced by Valorian arguments that humans were too dangerous to remain in civilized space. "What would you have me say?" Catherine asked. "The Conclave has decided that humanity expands too quickly, pliffs primitive species without permission, disrupts the balance of power that has existed for 1,000 years. You have voted to remove us. We will go." She picked up her case and walked toward the exit. Her footsteps echoed in the sudden silence of the chamber. "This is not how it is done," Zelthos said, his 4 eyes narrowing. "There are procedures, formal protests, appeals to higher authority." Catherine stopped at the door and turned back to face the assembly one final time. "Higher authority? The Conclave is the highest authority in known space. You have made your decision. We will honor it." She walked out, and the door closed behind her. In the corridor outside, her aide Daniel Porter was waiting. He was a young man of 28, with brown hair and honest eyes that still held hope for the universe. He had been with Catherine for 3 years, learning the art of diplomacy, believing that patience and good faith would eventually earn humanity its rightful place among the stars. The press is gathering in the reception area. They want a statement. Tell them to pack their bags. We're going home. Daniel fell into step beside her as she walked through the gleaming corridors of Station Apex. "That's it? 20 years of your work? 60 years of human diplomacy? And we just walk away?" Catherine did not slow her pace. "What would you have me do, Daniel? Cry? Beg? Throw myself on the mercy of species who have already decided we're not worth their consideration? I thought maybe you would fight. There are different ways to fight. They reached the docking bay where the human diplomatic vessel waited. It was a small ship, designed for comfort rather than speed, painted in the blue and white colors of Earth's government. Catherine stopped at the airlock and turned to face her aide. "Daniel, I need you to do something for me. Contact Admiral Lucas Grant at Fleet Command. Tell him to initiate Protocol Homecoming." Daniel's face went pale. Protocol Homecoming. I don't have clearance for that. I don't even know what that is. You have clearance now. Tell him those exact words. He'll understand. Catherine boarded the ship, leaving Daniel standing in the docking bay with questions he could not ask 12 hours later. The diplomatic vessel pulled away from Station Apex. Catherine stood alone in the observation lounge, watching the massive station grow smaller against the backdrop of stars. She had spent thousands of hours on that station, negotiating, compromising, smiling at beings who saw her species as clever animals at best. Her personal communicator chimed. She answered it, and the weathered face of Admiral Grant appeared on the small screen.
"Ambassador,
I received your message. Are you certain about this? The Conclave has given us exactly what we needed, Lucas. Permission to stop pretending." The Admiral was silent for a moment. He was an old man now, but his eyes were still sharp, still calculating. The deep space colonies? Activate them all. Every hidden installation, every research station, every manufacturing facility we've kept off the books for the last 40 years. It's time. It's going to make some noise. Good. I want them to hear it. She ended the transmission and turned back to the window. Somewhere out there, beyond the comfortable borders of conclave space, humanity had been building something. Not in secret exactly, but quietly, carefully. Preparing for the day when the welcome mat would be pulled away, Catherine thought about her grandmother, who had been alive when the first alien ships arrived in Earth's solar system. The old woman had told her stories about those days, about the fear and excitement and hope that had gripped the world, but grandmother had also told her something else. Never trust anyone who thinks they're better than you, she had said, and never let them see how strong you really are until it's too late for them to do anything about it. The Conclave thought they had punished humanity. They thought exile to the resource-poor Outer Rim would cripple the aggressive young species, teach them humility, perhaps even destroy them. They had no idea what they had actually done. They had set humanity free. 6 months had passed since the exile, and the universe had changed in ways the Conclave could not yet see. Commander, Nathan Cole stood on the bridge of the carrier Resolute Dawn, watching his tactical display fill with green dots. Each represented a human ship, station, or colony that had been hidden from Conclave sensors for decades. There were thousands of them now, spread across a region of space that the aliens had dismissed as worthless. "Commander, we're receiving confirmation from Kepler Station," reported Lieutenant Amy Walsh from the communications console. She was a small woman with red hair and quick hands that danced across her controls. All 12 manufacturing facilities are now online and producing at full capacity. Output levels 300% above what we projected before the exile. The new fabrication systems are working even better than Dr. Simmons predicted. Nathan allowed himself a small smile. He was 42 years old, with gray beginning to show at his temples and lines around his eyes from years of staring at screens in the dim light of spacecraft. He had spent his entire career preparing for a conflict he hoped would never come. Now it seemed that conflict was inevitable, and he found himself almost grateful. At least the waiting was over. "Any word from Erebus Station?" he asked. Amy checked her console. "Dr. Patricia Simmons is requesting a secure channel. She says it's urgent. Put her through to my ready room." Nathan walked off the bridge into his private office. It was a small space, barely large enough for a desk and 2 chairs, but it was his. The single window showed stars that had never seen a Conclave ship. He activated the secure terminal, and Dr. Simmons appeared on the screen. She was a woman in her 60s, with gray hair pulled back in a messy ponytail and eyes that sparkled with excitement. "Commander Cole, we've done it." "Done what exactly?" "The dimensional fold technology. We completed our first successful test this morning. A cargo container was transmitted from Erebus to a receiving station 40 light-years away. She paused for effect. It took less than 3 seconds. Nathan sat down heavily in his chair. 40 light years in 3 seconds. The fastest conclave ships would need 6 months to travel that distance. Their communication relays would take 3 weeks just to send a message. You're certain it works? Completely certain. We've run the test 17 times now. The technology is stable, reliable, and ready for larger applications. How soon can you scale it up for ships? Dr. Simmons's excitement dimmed slightly. That's more complicated. The energy requirements are substantial. We would need to build dedicated power stations at each endpoint. And there are still some issues with organic transport. We've lost a few test animals to what we're calling dimensional drift, but it will work eventually. Give me a year. Maybe 18 months. Then we'll have something that will change everything. Nathan ended the call and sat in silence for a long moment. He thought about his father, who had served in the first human delegation to the conclave. Full of hope about humanity's future among the stars, he thought about his grandfather, who had watched the first alien ships arrive and had immediately begun stockpiling weapons. Everyone had called grandfather paranoid. History was proving him wise. Meanwhile, on Station Apex, High Arbiter Zelthos was having a very different kind of meeting. What do you mean they're not struggling? He demanded. His intelligence chief, a Valorian named Kesseth, stood before him with a data tablet in hand. Exactly what I said, High Arbiter. Human activity in the Outer Rim has increased by 400% since the exile. Their manufacturing output appears to have tripled. They're building new stations at a rate we cannot explain. That's impossible. The Outer Rim has minimal resources. No infrastructure. Apparently they had more infrastructure than we knew about. Zelthos felt cold fear spreading through his body. He had pushed for the exile, convinced that removing humans from conclave space would eliminate a growing threat. The young species had been expanding too quickly, forming alliances with primitive worlds, developing technologies at an alarming rate. The exile was supposed to contain them. Instead, it seemed to have unleashed them. Show me everything, Zelthos ordered. Kesseth activated a holographic display, showing a star map of the Outer Rim. Red dots marked known human colonies and stations. Blue dots marked new construction detected in the past 6 months. The blue dots outnumbered the red by 10 to 1. How did we miss this? Zelthos whispered. They were very careful. Long-range sensor shadows, signal dampening fields, ships traveling on populated routes. They've been building this network for decades, right under our detection systems. Why? What were they preparing for? Unknown. But there's more. Kesseth manipulated the display, bringing up a communication intercept. We captured this transmission 3 days ago. Our cryptographers cannot break the encryption, but they've identified the signal type. It's a dimensional compression burst. Zelthos stared at his intelligence chief. That's theoretical technology. No species has successfully developed dimensional compression. The humans appear to have succeeded. The room fell silent. Dimensional compression, or fold technology, as some scientists called it, was a theoretical method of moving matter across vast distances, almost instantly. Every advanced species had tried to develop it. Every one had failed. If humans had succeeded, they possessed a military advantage that made conventional fleets meaningless. Convene an emergency session of the High Council, Zelthos ordered, and contact Ambassador Moore through unofficial channels. I believe we need to have a conversation. High Arbiter, the exile decree forbids official contact with human representatives, and make it unofficial. Find a way. After Kesseth left, Zelthos stood alone in his office, staring at the star map still floating in the air before him. He had been so certain that exile was the right decision. Humans were aggressive, ambitious, dangerous. Removing them from conclave space would protect the established order that had kept the galaxy stable for centuries. But now he wondered if he had made a terrible mistake. The conclave had not removed a threat. They had created an enemy with nothing to lose and everything to gain. And that enemy was growing stronger every day. Far away. In the depths of the Outer Rim, Nathan Cole received word of the Valorian intelligence operation. Human counterintelligence had detected the surveillance attempts immediately. Should we block their sensors? Amy Walsh asked. We could shut down their detection network completely. Nathan shook his head. No. Let them see some of what we're building. Not everything, just enough to make them nervous. Why would we want them nervous? Because nervous people make mistakes. And when they make their mistake, we need to be ready. He looked out at the stars, thinking about the future that was coming. The Conclave had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years through a combination of military power and political manipulation. They had never faced an enemy they could not control. They were about to learn what happened when they pushed the wrong species too far. Catherine. Moore received the message from High Arbiter Zelthos through a Delori merchant who owed humanity several favors. The Valorian wanted a secret meeting, away from the eyes of the Conclave and the ears of the other council members. Catherine agreed, but she chose the location herself. A small research station on the very edge of what had once been Conclave space, now technically human territory. The station was old and battered, its hull marked by decades of micrometeorite impacts. But its communication systems were state-of-the-art and its security was absolute. Zelthos arrived in a small personal ship, without guards or aides. He wore plain traveling clothes instead of his ceremonial robes, and his 4 eyes looked tired in a way Catherine had never seen before. Ambassador Moore, thank you for agreeing to meet. High Arbiter. I admit I'm curious what brings the leader of the Galactic Conclave to this forgotten corner of space. They sat across from each other in a small conference room. The metal table between them was scarred and worn, a reminder that this station had been built for function rather than appearance. Catherine had ordered the room checked for surveillance devices 3 times, and her own countermeasures hummed quietly in her pocket. I'll speak directly, Zelthos said. The Conclave made a mistake. Catherine raised an eyebrow but said nothing. We underestimated your species. We saw young, aggressive beings who were expanding too quickly and forming alliances that threatened the established order. We believed that exile would contain you, teach you humility, perhaps even save you from your own ambitions. He paused, his 4 eyes fixed on her face. We were wrong, were you? Your manufacturing capacity has increased tenfold since the exile. You're building ships faster than our shipyards can produce. Our intelligence indicates you've developed technologies we cannot replicate. He leaned forward, and our sensors have detected dimensional compression signatures in your space. Catherine kept her face carefully neutral. I cannot confirm or deny any details about human technology development. You don't need to confirm anything. I know what I've seen. Zelthos spread his hands on the table. I'm here to propose a new arrangement. Full Conclave membership for humanity, including a permanent seat on the High Council. Removal of all trade restrictions and travel limitations. Complete access to Conclave markets and resources. And in exchange, humanity shares its dimensional technology with the Alliance. Catherine was quiet for a long moment. She looked at the High Arbiter, studying the lines of stress on his pale blue face, the tension in his thin shoulders. He was afraid. The most powerful being in known space had come to this forgotten station because he was terrified of what humanity had become. That's quite an offer, she finally said. 6 months ago, you voted to exile us to die in the outer darkness. Now you're offering everything we spent 60 years trying to earn. Circumstances have changed. No, circumstances haven't changed at all. What's changed is your understanding of them. Catherine stood up and walked to the small window that looked out on the stars. Let me tell you what I see, High Arbiter. I see a species that was welcomed into galactic civilization with open arms. We were grateful, eager to learn, happy to follow the rules you've set for us. She turned to face him. And how did you treat us? Like servants. Like children. Like clever animals who might be useful but could never be equals. We applied for High Council membership 12 times. Each application was denied because of procedures and requirements that changed every time we met them. The bureaucratic process was designed to keep us out. You never intended to let humanity sit at the main table. We were supposed to be grateful for whatever scraps you chose to throw us. Zelthius's 4 eyes blinked in what might have been embarrassment or anger. I'm offering you a seat now, because you're afraid. Because you've realized that the species you tried to destroy has capabilities you don't understand? You're not offering partnership. You're trying to buy access to our technology before we become too powerful to control. If humanity becomes too powerful without any connection to the Conclave, there will be war. The other council members will demand it. Catherine smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Let me tell you what happens if the Conclave declares war on humanity. Within the first hour, we destroy every communication relay along your primary shipping routes. Your fleet coordination disappears. Within the first day, we cut your trade networks. Your economy begins to collapse. Within the first week, your member species start fighting each other for the resources that used to flow freely between them. She walked back to the table and leaned forward, her hands flat on the metal surface. We don't want war, High Arbiter. We never did. But we spent 60 years watching you, learning from you, preparing for the day you would decide we weren't useful anymore. That day came 6 months ago. Now, you have to live with what you created. Then what do you want? We want to be left alone. No interference, no surveillance, no attempts to steal our technology. In exchange, we'll maintain neutral relations with all Conclave members. No trade, no military alliances, no involvement in your politics. Complete separation. Zelthos shook his head. The other council members will never accept that. They'll see human isolation as a threat. An independent power with superior technology, growing stronger every year? Eventually, someone will decide you're too dangerous to leave alone. Then you'll have to convince them otherwise. And if I cannot? Catherine straightened up and gathered her documents. Then we'll deal with whatever comes. But we won't deal with it as members of your conclave, begging for protection and giving up our advantages. We'll deal with it as an independent species on our own terms. She walked toward the door, then paused. You know what the funny thing is? High Arbiter. The exile was supposed to be a punishment, a way of showing humanity what happens to species that don't know their place. But all you really did was cut the chains that were holding us back. You're making a mistake, Ambassador. Isolation breeds fear. Fear breeds conflict. Catherine looked back at him one final time. Maybe, but it's our mistake to make now, not yours. She left the room, and Zelthos sat alone in the silence, wondering how everything had gone so wrong. In the corridor outside, Catherine's hands were shaking. She had just told the most powerful being in known space to go to hell, and she had done it with a smile on her face. But inside, her heart was pounding with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. She activated her secure communicator. Admiral Grant, the meeting is over. The Valorians are scared, but they're not ready to accept our terms yet. Do you think they'll try something? Almost certainly. They can't admit defeat. Not to themselves, and not to the other council members. They'll need to demonstrate that humanity can still be controlled. Should we prepare for an attack? Catherine thought about it for a moment. Yes, but don't make it obvious. Let them think we're still the naive species they remember. Let them think they have a chance. And when they make their move, then we show them exactly what they're dealing with. 18 months after the exile, the attack came. Commander Nathan Cole was reviewing supply reports in his ready room when the alarm klaxons began to scream. He was on the bridge in less than 30 seconds. His crew already at their battle stations. Report, he ordered. Sliding into his command chair, Lieutenant Amy Walsh looked up from her console, her face pale. Multiple Krath warships have crossed into human space. We're counting 200 vessels, including 12 carrier-class ships. They're heading directly for the Kepler station cluster. Nathan felt his stomach tighten. Kepler was the heart of human manufacturing in the Outer Rim, home to over 2 million workers and their families. If the Krath reached those stations, the slaughter would be unimaginable. Time to intercept at our best speed. For hours, sir. But even if we get there first, we're massively outnumbered. They have us 30-1 in total ship weight. Nathan studied the tactical display, watching the red dots of enemy ships moving steadily toward their target. The Krath were insectoid beings. Their society organized around hive-like collectives that thought in terms of overwhelming force. They never attacked unless they were certain of victory, which meant they had no idea what they were walking into. Contact Fleet Command. I need to speak with Admiral Grant immediately. The Admiral's face appeared on the main screen moments later. Behind him, Nathan could see the controlled chaos of the command center at New Washington, the hidden capital of humanity's new civilization. I see the situation, Commander. The Krath ambassador is claiming their ships entered human space accidentally and are attempting to return to their own territory through our most valuable manufacturing sector. Apparently, their navigation systems all malfunctioned at the same time. Nathan almost laughed. The excuse was so ridiculous that it was almost insulting. But the Kraths weren't trying to fool anyone. They were sending a message. Humanity could be attacked without consequences. What are my orders, sir? Admiral Grant's expression was hard as stone. The Council has authorized defensive action. You are cleared to engage the enemy, sir. With respect, I have 12 ships. They have 200, Commander Cole. Have you completed the installation of the dimensional fold systems on your task force? Nathan felt his heart rate increase. Yes, sir. All 12 vessels are fold capable. Then I suggest you remind the Krath why they should have left us alone. The Admiral paused. Good luck, Commander. Fleet Command out. The screen went dark, and Nathan turned to face his crew. They were looking at him with a mixture of fear and determination. These were good people, professionals who had trained for years for a battle they hoped would never come. That battle was now 4 hours away. All hands. This is the commander. His voice was broadcast throughout the ship and to every vessel in his task force. In 4 hours, we will engage a superior enemy force. They outnumber us. They outgun us. They believe they're going to destroy our manufacturing capability and show the rest of the galaxy that humans can be pushed around. He paused, letting his words sink in. They're wrong. We have weapons they cannot imagine and tactics they cannot counter. Every person on these ships has trained for this moment. Today, we show the Conclave what happens when you underestimate humanity. He cut the broadcast and turned to his navigation officer. Plot fold coordinates for Kepler Station orbital space. We're going to emerge right in the middle of their formation. Lieutenant Walsh looked up with alarm. Sir, we've never used fold technology in a combat situation. The calculations for appearing in the middle of a battle fleet are being transmitted from Erebus Station as we speak. Dr. Simmons has been running combat scenarios for months. Nathan allowed himself a grim smile. The Krath think they have 4 hours to prepare for us. They actually have about 3 minutes. The fold transition was like nothing Nathan had ever experienced. One moment, the Resolute Dawn hung in empty space, surrounded by the other ships of his task force. The next moment, they were in the middle of the Krath fleet, so close to the nearest enemy carrier that Nathan could see individual hull plates. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. The Krath ships continued on their course, their sensors not yet registering the impossibility that had just occurred. Then all hell broke loose. All weapons, fire at will. Nathan shouted. Navigation, execute combat fold pattern alpha. The human ships opened fire simultaneously, their weapons tearing into Krath vessels at point-blank range. 3 enemy carriers exploded in the first volley, their crews never knowing what hit them. Then the human ships vanished. They reappeared seconds later on the opposite side of the Krath formation and fired again. More explosions, more dying ships. Then they vanished once more. The Krath commanders tried to organize a response, tried to form defensive formations, tried to track the human vessels that kept appearing and disappearing like ghosts. But how do you fight an enemy that doesn't follow the rules of space combat? Nathan watched his tactical display fill with yellow dots marking destroyed enemy ships. The Krath were firing wildly now, their disciplined fleet falling into chaos as human vessels appeared, delivered devastating attacks, and disappeared before return fire could reach them. Commander. Enemy flagship is trying to retreat, Amy reported. They're signaling the rest of the fleet to fall back. Don't let them. Keep the pressure on. The battle lasted less than an hour. When it was over, 147 Krath ships had been destroyed. 32 had surrendered, their crews too shocked to continue fighting. The rest fled back toward the border at maximum speed. Human losses: 0 ships destroyed. 17 crew members injured, none seriously. Nathan sat back in his chair, his hands trembling slightly from the adrenaline. He had just commanded the most lopsided military victory in galactic history. Lieutenant Walsh, open a channel to the Krath flagship. I want to speak with their commander. A moment later, a Krath face appeared on the screen. The insectoid's compound eyes reflected dozens of tiny images of fire and destruction, and its mandibles clicked. With what Nathan recognized as extreme distress, AM Commander Cole of the Human Defense Force, your fleet entered our territory without permission and approached our civilian installations in attack formation. We have responded accordingly. This is not possible, the Krath commander clicked. The technology you possess, it cannot exist. And yet here we are. Tell your government that humanity wishes to maintain peaceful relations with all former Conclave members. But if any fleet crosses into our space again, we will not simply defend ourselves. We will pursue that fleet back to its home system and return the favor. The Conclave will not allow this. The Conclave exiled us. They made it very clear they wanted nothing to do with humanity. We're simply honoring their wishes. Nathan leaned forward. Now go home, Commander, and tell them what you saw here. He cut the transmission and slumped back in his chair. Around him, his crew was silent, still processing what they had just accomplished. Sir, Amy Walsh said softly, what happens now? Nathan looked out at the stars, thinking about all the changes that were coming. The Conclave had been the dominant power in the galaxy for 1,000 years. Today, that dominance had ended. Now the rest of the galaxy learns that humanity isn't playing by their rules anymore, and they have to decide what they're going to do about it. He stood up and straightened his uniform. Begin rescue operations for any Krath survivors. Treat the prisoners well. I want them to go home and tell everyone exactly how we behaved, both in battle and after. You want them to respect us? No. Nathan shook his head. I want them to understand us. We're not monsters. We're not conquerors. We're just a species that refuses to be pushed around. If they can understand that, maybe we can avoid fighting this war again. But looking at the debris fields surrounding his ships, the wreckage of almost 200 vessels that had tried to destroy human civilians, Nathan wondered if peace was still possible, or if this was just the beginning. 5 years had passed since the exile, and Catherine Moore stood once again in the grand chamber of the Galactic Conclave. Everything was different. Now she was no longer a representative of a minor species, begging for recognition and respect. She was the voice of the human commonwealth, a civilization that had grown to encompass over 1,000 worlds. Human ships could cross the galaxy in hours. Human factories produced goods that every species wanted to buy. Human scientists had developed technologies that the Conclave could not understand, let alone replicate, and she was here because they had asked her to come. The chamber looked the same as she remembered, the same crystal walls glowing with soft light, the same floating platforms arranged in their ancient pattern. But the faces of the delegates had changed. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something that looked very much like fear. High Arbiter Zelthos stood at his traditional place, looking considerably older than he had 5 years ago. His 4 eyes were tired, and his movements lacked the confident grace Catherine remembered. The Conclave has voted to extend an invitation to the human commonwealth, he announced. We propose a new form of partnership based on equality and mutual respect. All previous restrictions and sanctions are hereby withdrawn. Catherine looked around the chamber. The same representatives who had voted to exile humanity now sat in uncomfortable silence. Many of them could not meet her eyes. She thought about what humanity had accomplished since the exile. The fold gates that connected human worlds, allowing instant travel across impossible distances. The manufacturing facilities that had turned barren moons into productive worlds. The alliances with species the Conclave had never bothered to contact. She thought about the 17 civilizations humanity had helped rise from primitive conditions to spaceflight, not by imposing human culture on them, but by giving them tools and knowledge and letting them develop in their own ways. She thought about the Krath attack, and the dozens of smaller conflicts that had followed as various species tested human resolve. Every test had ended the same way. Quick, decisive defeat for the attackers, followed by fair treatment and eventual peace. "The Commonwealth appreciates the offer," Catherine said. "But we must decline." The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. "We don't seek revenge for what happened," she continued, her voice calm and clear. "We understand that the Conclave acted out of fear. You saw young species growing too quickly, forming alliances you couldn't control, developing technologies you didn't understand. You believe that containing us was necessary for the stability of galactic civilization?" She paused, looking around at the assembled delegates. "We don't agree with your assessment, but we understand why you made it." Catherine activated her own holographic display, showing a map of human space. It filled half the chamber, a vast territory that dwarfed the space humanity had occupied before the exile. "What we have built in the past 5 years is something new. Not an empire based on conquest, but a network of free worlds united by shared values. We've helped species that the Conclave ignored. We've opened trade routes to regions you never explored. We've created a civilization that doesn't need your approval to thrive. Then why did you come?" "Delegate the Krath asked. The insectoid's voice carried no hostility, only curiosity. "Because isolation cannot last forever. Eventually, humanity and the Conclave will need to interact. It's better to establish the rules of that interaction now, while relations are stable, than to wait for the next crisis." She changed the display, showing a new map that overlaid human and Conclave territories. "We propose a different kind of relationship. Not membership in your organization, but a treaty between equals. Free passage through each other's space. Limited trade agreements, with both sides keeping the right to protect sensitive technology. A joint commission to resolve disputes before they become conflicts. And if we refuse," Zelthos asked, "then nothing changes. We continue as we are, separate civilizations in different parts of the galaxy. We don't need you, High Arbiter. But we believe we can benefit each other if you're willing to treat us as partners instead of subordinates." The chamber fell silent as the representatives considered her words. Catherine watched their faces, seeing the calculations in their minds. They were afraid of humanity, yes, but they were also curious, perhaps even envious. Finally, Zelthos spoke. "The Conclave will need time to consider your proposal, but speaking for myself, I believe you're right. The old ways of doing things, the hierarchies we maintained for centuries, they don't work anymore. Perhaps it's time for everyone to try something new." Catherine nodded. "That's all we ever wanted. The chance to prove ourselves. You tried to exile us to the darkness, High Arbiter. Instead, you set us free." She gathered her documents and turned to leave, then stopped at the door. "One more thing. In 5 years, we've grown from an exiled afterthought to a major galactic power. Imagine what we'll accomplish in 50 years. In 500. She looked back at the assembly. "Humanity doesn't forget what was done to us. But we don't hold grudges either. Work with us, and we'll build something amazing together. Stand against us, and we'll build it without you." She walked out of the chamber, leaving the representatives to think about a galaxy that had changed forever. Outside, Daniel Porter was waiting. He wasn't a junior aide anymore, but a senior diplomat who had helped build the Commonwealth's foreign policy. There were streaks of gray in his hair now and lines around his eyes, but his expression was hopeful. "How did it go?" he asked, better than expected. "They're scared, but they're starting to understand." "Understand what?" Catherine looked up at the stars visible through the station's observation dome. She thought about all the human colonies scattered across the galaxy, all the ships traveling impossible distances, all the possibilities that lay ahead. That you cannot exile an idea. You cannot contain a species that refuses to be contained. All you can do is step back and watch them grow. They walked together toward the docking bay where the Commonwealth vessel waited. It was larger than the diplomatic ships Catherine used to travel in, built for speed and comfort, painted in the new colors of humanity's government. "Do you think they'll accept the treaty?" Daniel asked. "Eventually. They don't have much choice. The galaxy is changing, and they can either change with it or get left behind. And us. What happens to humanity?" Catherine smiled, and for the first time in years, It was a genuine expression of happiness. We keep doing what we've always done. We explore. We build. We make alliances with species who share our values. We help those who need help. We defend ourselves when we must. She stopped at the airlock and looked back at Station Apex one final time. She had spent so many years in that place fighting for recognition that was never going to come, playing a game that was designed for her to lose. Now the game had changed. Humanity was writing its own rules. You know what the Conclave never understood about us? She said, they thought exile would break our spirit. They thought cutting us off from their civilization would leave us helpless and alone. But it didn't. No. It reminded us who we really are. We're not a species that needs permission to succeed. We're not a civilization that depends on the approval of others. We're humanity. We adapt. We overcome. We find a way. She stepped through the airlock and onto her ship. Let's go home, Daniel. We have a lot of work to do. The Commonwealth vessel pulled away from Station Apex and activated its full drive. In the blink of an eye, it crossed distances that would have taken the Conclave months to travel. Behind them, the representatives of 47 star systems began the long process of accepting a new reality. The universe had changed. Humanity had made sure of it.